This is Lynn Davison, your adulting coach. Today, I want to answer a question from Elaine. Her son is 24. She shares, and I quote, "I'm having a hard time setting boundaries with him. He's quite entitled, which I know is my fault. And he has a hard time with his moods. He's also in recovery. My son has a hard time focusing, and he gets super upset if it's very noisy, especially when he does homework. He wants us all to leave the common space and not to use the kitchen, which sometimes we can accommodate, but we can't always. And it's fireworks if we can't accommodate his needs." I get it, Elaine. These types of situations really trigger us to, think like there's just nothing we can do to make our young adult, happy. And so I want to see if I can help you and him solve this problem together. But first, it sounds like focus is his struggle, and that makes a lot of sense. Our kids have brains that are, when they were born, it's just the genetic lottery that they got. It seems like their primitive brain is on high alert. And when they're always on high alert, it means that they are, that triggers a lot of anxiety. And when our anxiety is triggered, it frankly cuts off our prefrontal cortex, where our wise brain is just relegated to the background while our primitive brain keeps us alive. And we love our primitive brain. It serves a really important purpose. The trouble comes when we overuse it. And that's can create a cascade of effects that makes us less capable of coping with whatever situation life hands us. And we know it's going to hand us a lot of different situations. So I get that focus is an issue for your son, and it's an issue for members of my family as well. And we've come up with several strategies that have helped us tackle that. The first thing is, helping him understand what's happening. His primitive brain is trying to keep him safe, efficient, and belonging. And in particular, that efficient piece is what seems to get really frustrating for our kids. Like if they can't focus now, it becomes a real trigger for anger. It's like, get out of my space. Stop creating problems for me. And, it makes a lot of sense. Though we know that when we think about it with our wise brain, there's got to be a better solution out there. So, the first thing we need to do is help your son know that you see him, because if you see him, he'll feel safe enough and soothed enough and secure enough so that you can start to solve this problem together. So that listening to him, the biggest, most important piece is that we acknowledge how he's feeling. And he may not always have words for that, but you can just say, you are really uncomfortable. I mean, we're not trying to be poets here. We're not trying to parse out just exactly the emotion, but you're really uncomfortable. You're really frustrated. You're really, angry. Whatever the emotion is, please take the time to reflect that back to him. And if you can tag on, because it's hard to focus, the because and then the thought, you're having a hard time focusing. That's what he's thinking. That's what's triggering his emotion of frustration. So if we can acknowledge that's what's happening with him, oftentimes it's like a pin hitting a balloon and it just sort of deflates. Thank goodness, somebody understands what's going on with me. That's the first step. We really need to listen up to our kids. Then the second thing we need to do is we really need to problem solve this together and not in the middle of this, blow up that he's having. Because the amygdala, the primitive brain has just turned off his prefrontal cortex. It's going to take a while to come back online. He doesn't want to hear about a solution right now. He needs to get whatever's in front of him done until that tension is off of that, here's where I am and here's where I want to be, until the rubber band is slacked off a bit. He just isn't going to have any room in his brain to listen. So let's problem solve, but not in the middle of the problem. Let's get it to a separate part. And if you listen to the video that I did yesterday, it outlines exactly the problem solving, the proactive, collaborative problem solving process that Ross Greene has promoted across the country in schools, and we need to use it as well in our homes. And he's very generous with his resources at his website, Lives in the Balance. And I can't remember, but in the last video, it has all the details about that. You really want to go to that website. You really want to download his resources, and please use this process. It starts out with first you describing the problem, then you listen to your son's thoughts and feelings about it, then you share your thoughts and feelings about it, and then hopefully the two of you can come together, come up with a solution that you're willing to experiment with. That spirit of experimentation is what's important. Because what's happening is that, our brains go right to the all or nothing thinking. It's either you cut down all the noise or I can't study. And we know that there's some room in there. There's many other options that we could explore, but the brain immediately goes to that all or nothing thinking because it's easier. It's easier for our brain. It's more efficient for our brain to think it's one or the other. And that's what our brain loves. It loves to be efficient. So we have to kind of break that all or nothing thinking up, into a little bit of flexibility, a little bit more room to come up with solutions that are going to work for us, but not in the heat of the moment, because that's not when things are going to work. I mean, that all or nothing thinking helps our brains compartmentalize and organize our information. So in some ways it's useful, but if we overuse it again, that's when, if it becomes our only coping skill or our only problem solving skill, it's really not going to get us what we want out of life. So there are just likely hundreds of other options rather than those two extremes. So the next thing I wanted to address in your comment was that your thought that it's really hard and it's all my fault. I think I counted 3 times you said it. He's having a hard time, or I'm having a hard time. And I just want you to give yourself a break with compassion. Notice how you're using your current self to judge your past self. It's a thought that sounds like, I should have known better. I really hope that you notice that thought and realize that you did the best you could with what you knew at the time and what you had as a toolbox at that time. Really, I mean, I can tell by the way that you're trying to help. You're just that kind of a mom who really loves her kids down to their toenails and wants to be the best mom ever. So I know that your thoughts and your feelings were in the right place. They came from love. So please give yourself some compassion. We all need to give ourselves more compassion. We're really earning a Ivy League education, raising our kids, because it takes more energy. Raising an autistic kid takes more energy than raising a non-autistic kid. I know we have 6 of them, and I've raised both, and I can tell you that it just takes more energy, but the payoff is so amazing. When our kids get it and they really are able to, become and do and create who they want to be, it's so exciting because the struggle has been there. So, we just have to be compassionate with ourselves that we did the very best and are doing the very best that we know how. It's all my fault, or it was my fault, just may not be a useful thought for you. That's what we talk about in the art of adulting, is we notice the thoughts that we're practicing, and we decide, is this a useful thought, or is this a thought that I should try not to think about it as much. Work on deconditioning that thought and work on replacing it with a thought that really does work better for us, which was, I did my best. I did the best that I could at the time. Your brain offers all of us 60,000 thoughts in a given day. That's a ton of thoughts to manage. So all what we're trying to do is just grab a few of them, look at them and say, are these the thoughts that are going to create the life we love that works? And if we can teach ourselves how to do that, imagine the magic that can happen when our kids do it as well. And that's what I'm trying to help all of my families and autistic young adults do, is to slow things down a little bit and look at those thoughts and think, is that getting me the result that I really want? At first, we can feel ashamed and feel our own pain. And, and when we notice that, when we say it's all my fault, the shame we feel, and then the actions we take, we get smaller, we lose confidence, we lose energy. Sometimes we start spinning in our own thoughts. We don't get our sleep isn't as good. I mean, the consequences of thinking those thoughts on a regular basis can have a real impact on the energy levels we bring to our life. So, of course, your thoughts created those things in the past. It makes perfect sense. And right now, I know that those thoughts are optional. I can choose the ones that I practice. So the thought that I like is, my thoughts created emotions and actions back then, just like they do now. I mean, to me, that just frees me up to relax and say, oh, okay, now I can decide intentionally the thoughts that are going to work better for me. So what I experienced in the past wasn't good or bad. There's that, black, white thinking again. It was, how I thought back then and how I coped back then. And now look at me, I'm able to grow and learn from looking at those thoughts to decide, is that something that really works for me? So another thought I want to suggest to you, another option I want to offer you is that sometimes we think our kids shouldn't experience pain or that we shouldn't experience pain. But that's how we grow. How are we supposed to grow if we don't have the downside, the pain? That yin yang symbol has been around for a lot of years, showing us that there's the happy times, but they have a kernel of darkness, and the dark times, which has a kernel of light. And that's how we grow. So the thoughts that we had was not good or bad, right or wrong. They just were. So see if you can find compassion for that brain of yours who's just trying to keep you safe and alive and belonging. Maybe try playing with the idea that if thoughts create pain in the past, they're creating your pain now. So maybe play with the idea that nothing went wrong in the past and nothing's gone wrong now. There's just us, our brains, the emotions we feel, the actions we take, and it's all totally fine. All we have to do is solve whatever problem's in front of us, take that tiny little step to experiment to see if we can figure out something that might work better for us and our families. I know that if you sit down with your autistic young adult, they, in a calm time, will understand that you cannot, clear out the kitchen and not make any noise for those extended periods of time when he's studying. And perhaps, noise canceling headphones or white noise machines or some other option may be the solution for him. But it's really good idea if he comes up with the idea first. Our young adults certainly love implementing their ideas before they love implementing ours. So just consider, hopefully, that with compassion, that nothing in the past was wrong or right. It just was. And maybe we can move on from there. So I want to just encourage you to come to www.lindsaydavison.com and check out the Art of Adulting there, and see if you are interested in joining our coaching, our course, our coaching, and our community, because we sure would love to see you there. Bye for now.